Something has shifted in Jerusalem, and it happened without broadcast, without commentary, and without any official attempt to explain it. Two separate movements appeared almost at the same time, one unfolding in the early hours before sunrise, and another in the ongoing preparations connected to the Third Temple, different in nature, yet aligned in timing. Near dawn, a sound moved across the sacred area.
Nice.
It did not resemble aircraft, machinery, or any known natural resonance. Witnesses described a moment of stillness that followed, brief, controlled, and unusual. There was no panic and no confusion, only interruption, as if the environment paused for an instant. Soon after, a burst of light appeared above the temple area. It began as a small point, then widened. It was not explosive, not violent, but precise. Multiple live streams captured fragments of the moment. Yet none of the major networks addressed it. The event passed quietly, even though thousands watched it in real time. While this was happening, another development was resurfacing. A man in the United States revealed ashes from a recent red heifer ritual. Actual ashes, not symbolic or ceremonial replicas. He stated that the ritual was conducted in Israel under the guidance of trained priests. For the first time in 2,000 years, ashes prepared according to Numbers 19 now exist on the earth again. And these ashes are a required step before temple service can be restored. Two movements, one above the Temple Mount, one within Israel's religious structure, both emerging in the same window of time. The purpose here is not to draw conclusions. It is to present the sequence, observe the alignment, and recognize when unrelated events begin to fit a pattern. Something is taking shape, quietly and measurably, while the world remains preoccupied and unaware. The sound before sunrise. The unusual sequence began before sunrise, at an hour when the area around the western wall is typically quiet, but not empty. A number of people were already present for early prayer, routine work, or preparation for the day. Nothing in the environment indicated that anything out of the ordinary was approaching. Weather conditions were stable. No alerts were issued. No activity from aircraft or machinery was reported. Then a sound moved across the area. It was not loud in the sense of volume, but it carried weight. It did not match the tone of shofars, construction, traffic, or environmental resonance. Witnesses described it as a controlled vibration, steady, sustained, and distinct from any known source. Some reported that the sound seemed to come from above. Others said it felt horizontal, as if passing through the space rather than emerging from one point. The exact origin could not be determined. What followed was more unusual than the sound itself. People stopped moving almost simultaneously. There was no sign of fear, no rush to escape, no attempt to identify danger. The reaction was uniform. Stillness. A brief pause in activity, lasting only seconds, but coordinated enough to be noted by every camera pointed at the area. The silence that accompanied it was sharper than the sound. Not a mechanical failure, not a broadcast glitch, but a complete halt in human movement. I will make the ears of everyone who hears it tingle. 1 Samuel 3:11. A few individuals reported a physical sensation, neither pain nor discomfort, but an internal awareness that something had passed through the environment. Others described a momentary pressure, similar to atmospheric shift, but without wind or temperature change. These descriptions came from unrelated sources and appeared within minutes of each other, giving the impression of a shared experience rather than isolated interpretation. No disturbance followed, no agency issued a statement, no authority provided an explanation. The phenomenon was not categorized as seismic, acoustic, or military. The live streams that captured it remained archived without commentary. The lack of response is what makes the event notable. When an occurrence affects a large group at the same moment, in the same location, and leaves no physical trace, it becomes part of a pattern worth observing. This sound marks the first point in the broader sequence. It did not answer questions, it created them. And its timing, placed just before other developments in Jerusalem, is the detail that moves it from an isolated anomaly to an element within a larger movement. Something shifted before sunrise, and the silence that followed carries more weight than the sound itself. The light above the temple area. Shortly after the sound event, a second phenomenon appeared. This time, it was visible, recorded from multiple angles, and captured on several live streams that were active throughout the night. A point of light emerged above the temple area. It did not resemble aircraft lights, drone activity, laser projection, or reflections from nearby structures. The light held its position for a moment, then expanded. The expansion was smooth, controlled, and without any explosive flash or peripheral disturbance. It grew in intensity, but not in aggression. It illuminated the space below without creating glare or distortion in the camera feeds. The movement of the light was the primary reason many viewers noticed it. It did not pulse or flicker. It widened in a single steady progression, then held its place before fading in the same controlled manner. In your light, we see light. Psalm 36:9. Those present in the area reported a shift in awareness when the light expanded. Several described a sense of exposure, as if their internal state was brought into clarity for a brief moment. These were personal impressions, not coordinated statements. Yet the language used across different testimonies was unexpectedly similar. Again, there was no panic, no rush to leave. People stood still, as they had during the earlier sound event, though the stillness this time seemed voluntary, not induced. The cameras continued to record, and the event unfolded in a time frame too short for any organized intervention, yet long enough for thousands of viewers to witness it live. No nearby installations, towers, or facilities produced any anomalies at that time. No military flights were logged in the airspace. There were no festivals, ceremonies, or stage equipment capable of generating such a focused and isolated burst of light. The phenomenon remained unexplained. What makes this event significant is not the brightness, but the timing. It followed the sound by a short interval, it appeared in the same geographical zone, and it coincided with a period in which several major developments related to the temple preparations were resurfacing. The light did not deliver a message. It did not alter the environment. It simply appeared, expanded, held, and dissolved. But when placed alongside the earlier sound, it forms a sequence, two anomalies within the same window of time, in the same location, documented and observed, yet not acknowledged by any authority. Patterns begin with small pieces. This light is one of those pieces. It stands as the second marker in a chain that is now becoming more defined. The moment of stillness. The third element in the sequence took place shortly after the light appeared. It was not visual and not auditory. It was a change in human behavior occurring within a defined perimeter and captured simultaneously across multiple live streams. For several seconds, people in the area stopped moving. The halt was complete. Individuals who had been walking, gesturing, or speaking became motionless. The transition was abrupt, but not chaotic. The environment did not react as it would to fear or shock. It reacted as if time had been paused for a brief, controlled interval. Witnesses later described an internal awareness during those seconds. Some reported that they could think, but could not act. Others stated that their bodies felt momentarily disconnected from intention. These accounts were simple, direct, and consistent. None of them suggested panic. None implied medical distress. The stillness ended the same way it began, suddenly, without escalation, without visible cause. The Lord is in His holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before Him. Habakkuk 2:20. The silence captured on video was distinct. Ambient sounds normally present at the western wall, footsteps, conversations, distant city noise, fell away. Microphones recorded only static air, not due to malfunction but due to the absence of activity. The environment returned to normal immediately after movements resumed. Conversations restarted. The area continued as if the interruption had not occurred. There were no alarms, no emergency responses, no concern from officials on site. The moment passed unnoticed by institutions, but not by those who watched the footage closely. This type of stillness is uncommon in public spaces. Human behavior rarely sinks at this level without an external stimulus. Yet no such stimulus was identified. No blast, no signal, no directive, no physical trigger. The stillness was complete but short, significant but unaddressed. It resembles events recorded in past historical moments, where unexplained pauses preceded or accompanied larger shifts, though the relevance here remains to be seen. What connects this moment to the earlier sound and the light is timing. 3 anomalies, all centered in the same location, appearing in close succession, each documented from multiple angles, none receiving explanation, none fitting standard categories, each quiet, controlled, and precise. The pause in movement becomes the third marker in the developing pattern, a pattern that is forming not through speculation, but through observable, verifiable sequence. Something moved through that space before sunrise. It produced a sound, a light, and a moment in which human activity stopped. The significance is not in the intensity of each event. It is in their alignment. They did not occur at random intervals. They followed each other step by step, pointing to a shift that is still unfolding. The first red heifer ritual in 2,000 years. While the early morning events were drawing attention on live streams, another development was emerging from a completely different source. A man in the United States appeared on national television holding a small pouch.
You just got back from Israel and you guys did that ceremony, right?
Yeah, I actually have some ash in my pocket.
You brought the cow's ashes with you?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
Inside the pouch were ashes from a red heifer burned in Israel on July 1st. He stated clearly that these were not ceremonial replicas or symbolic substitutes. They were the actual ashes produced according to the requirements of Numbers 19. He also confirmed that trained priests supervised the process from beginning to end, following the biblical instructions without modification. This claim attracted scrutiny because no such ashes have existed for approximately 2,000 years. The red heifer ritual is rare, specific, and central to purification laws connected to the operation of the temple for centuries. It remained only a discussion, a concept, or a future expectation. The absence of a valid red heifer and the inability to prepare its ashes were often cited as major barriers preventing any return to temple service. Yet, according to this testimony, that barrier has now been crossed. The ashes of the heifer for purification from sin. Numbers 19. The man presenting the ashes, Byron Stenson, explained that he had been directly involved in bringing the qualified red heifers from the United States to Israel. His statements indicated that the July 1st ritual was not experimental. It was not symbolic. It was carried out with full intention, using wood and materials specified in Torah, and with oversight from individuals trained specifically for this purpose. He stated that the ashes produced were sufficient to purify an immense number of people, far beyond what would be required for a limited ceremonial act. His appearance on television was brief, but the implications were substantial. If accurate, it means a foundational requirement for temple purification has already been met. That requirement is not political. It is not architectural. It is not dependent on negotiations or international agreements. It is ritual, an internal preparation step that must occur before any future temple activity can be considered valid under biblical law. The fact that this step has been completed outside public attention is notable. The timing is also relevant. For over 2 millennia, no ritual of this kind was possible. Then, within a period of global instability and rising focus on Jerusalem, the event took place quietly, without official announcement and without international coverage. It was not framed as a prophetic event by the networks. It was presented simply as a human interest story. Yet the contents of that pouch marked the return of something long absent from Israel's religious structure. The July 1st ritual stands on its own. It does not depend on interpretations of the earlier sound or light phenomena, but when viewed in sequence, it becomes part of a larger alignment. One set of events occurred above the temple area. Another occurred within the framework required to restore temple functions. Both movements unfolded in close proximity on the timeline, each without media amplification, each carrying weight of its own. No conclusions are stated here, only the facts. Ashes now exist, prepared according to the ancient instructions, handled by trained priests, confirmed publicly by a participant, and reintroduced into the world after 2,000 years of absence. That alone marks a shift in the landscape surrounding Jerusalem. The controversy that followed. Soon after the red heifer ashes were revealed, conflicting reports began to circulate. The organization most associated with temple preparation, the Temple Institute, was said to have downplayed the July 1st ritual. Journalists were told that the heifer used was not fully qualified, that the ceremony was only a rehearsal, and that the ashes produced did not meet the biblical standard required for purification. These statements were delivered with confidence, as if intended to settle the matter quickly. However, they conflicted directly with the testimonies of those who were present at the ritual itself. Individuals who witnessed the process insisted that every detail followed the Torah instructions precisely. They reported that the wood used matched the requirements, that the priests involved had been prepared for years, and that no part of the ritual was symbolic or experimental. The people who stood beside the fire described the event as exact, intentional, and completed without deviation. This contrast created a clear question. Why would an institution long dedicated to the rebuilding of the temple attempt to reduce the significance of a ritual that aligns with its stated mission? No accusations are made here, but the inconsistency is notable. The downplayed statements came after the ritual, not before it. And they were delivered to the media, not to the public gathered at the event. Meanwhile, the testimonies of the participants remained consistent, detailed and unverifiable only because no official documentation was released. The situation raised additional concern because this is not a minor detail. According to biblical law, the red heifer ritual is one of the most sensitive and essential requirements for purification. Any claim, either affirming or denying its validity, carries weight. The disagreement, therefore, becomes part of the unfolding sequence, not because it resolves anything, but because it highlights the increasing tension around developments related to the temple. The absence of clarity is itself significant. When a major religious milestone occurs quietly, followed by attempts to soften or obscure its importance, the pattern suggests pressure. It also suggests that the timeline surrounding temple preparations may be advancing faster than expected, leading some groups to respond defensively or cautiously. No conclusion is drawn here. Only the observation remains. The ritual took place, the ashes exist, the witnesses affirm its validity, and the institution most connected to the temple chose to distance itself publicly. This divergence marks another point in the pattern forming around Jerusalem, a pattern defined not by announcements, but by controlled silence. The gathering of gold for the temple. Following the discussion surrounding the red heifer ritual, another development emerged from the same source. Byron Stenson, the man who presented the ashes on national television, stated that he is preparing to travel to Papua New Guinea. His purpose is specific: to work with gold miners who are gathering gold intended for the future temple in Jerusalem. He did not frame it as a symbolic effort or a gesture of support. He described it as a concrete operation already in progress. Gold is central to the construction of any temple model based on the biblical pattern it is required for vessels, furnishings, and architectural elements. Throughout history, whenever the temple was built or rebuilt, gold played a defining role. The fact that gold-gathering efforts are now being linked to a direct plan for a future temple marks a shift from theory to preparation. This is not speculative commentary. It is a practical action being taken far from Israel, but directed toward it. The location adds to the significance. Papua New Guinea is thousands of miles from Jerusalem. It holds no political or religious connection to the Temple Mount. Yet individuals there are reportedly entering agreements or partnerships to secure gold specifically for a temple project. Movements of this scale do not form casually. They require coordination, resources, and long-term intention. No official statements have been released from Israeli authorities. No public announcement has been made regarding a temple construction timeline. And yet, gold is being gathered, red heifer ashes exist, and trained priests are already active within the preparatory structure. These elements are not isolated. Each one belongs to a step required for temple readiness. The gathering of gold is not the headline event. It will not appear in major broadcasts. But in the broader sequence, it carries weight because it represents a logistical milestone. When a ritual requirement is met and a material requirement begins, the process moves forward, even if quietly. This development forms another link in the pattern surrounding Jerusalem. It shows that preparation is not theoretical. It is underway, and it is taking place in regions far beyond Israel's borders, connecting distant locations into a single trajectory, pointing back to the Temple Mount. The other preparations that are now complete. The developments surrounding the red heifer and the gathering of gold are not isolated. They fit into a broader framework that has been forming for years. Several elements required for temple function are already in place. These items are not speculative. They are documented, prepared, and ready for use. Groups of priests have been trained according to the standards of Levitical service. Their training includes garments, procedures, and ritual actions necessary for temple operation. These men are not symbolically rehearsing ancient customs. They are being prepared for practical responsibilities, expected to be carried out in a future temple setting. Their readiness represents a structural piece that had been missing for centuries. Sacred objects required for temple service, vessels, instruments, garments, and furnishings have been recreated in exact accordance with biblical specifications. These items have been publicly displayed in the past, not as museum pieces, but as functional tools awaiting activation. Their existence removes another major barrier that once prevented temple restoration. There are also increasing statements from various rabbinic groups indicating that the conditions for temple service are now present. These statements are not official proclamations, but they reflect a growing consensus among those involved in restoration efforts. Some have stated that the only remaining barrier is timing, not readiness. In addition, discussions have circulated regarding the possibility of a second red heifer ritual to be performed on the Mount of Olives. If carried out, this would reinforce the July 1st ritual and further establish purification availability for large-scale use. While no date has been publicly announced, the preparation for such a ritual suggests that the structure surrounding temple purity is expanding, not slowing. These components, trained priests, completed vessels, ready garments, public declarations of readiness, and the potential for another ritual, form a foundation. They show that the system is not waiting for conceptual approval. It is waiting for activation. Every element required internally for temple function is either completed or in its final stage. The pace is steady, deliberate, and aligned with the other developments emerging around Jerusalem. The convergence of the two lines of events. When the sound, the light, and the moment of stillness are placed on a timeline, they appear as isolated anomalies. Each event can be acknowledged without drawing any prophetic conclusion. Each can be examined as a singular occurrence, but their timing becomes significant when viewed alongside the developments connected to the temple preparations. The two lines of events, one occurring above the temple area and the other within Israel's religious framework, intersect within the same narrow window. The sound took place before sunrise. The light followed shortly after. The stillness occurred in the same environment and was recorded from multiple angles. None of these events received formal explanations. None were classified by authorities. They passed quietly, even though they were witnessed live by thousands. At the same time, the reappearance of red heifer ashes, the gathering of gold, and the readiness of priests and temple vessels all emerged or resurfaced. These developments are not speculative. They are factual components of a process that has been building for decades but has advanced noticeably in recent months. When internal ritual requirements are fulfilled and logistical preparations expand, timelines begin to shift. The significance lies in the alignment, movements in the heavens above Jerusalem, and movements on the ground concerning temple preparation do not normally coincide. When they appear together, even without explanation, they create a pattern worth noting. The purpose here is not to interpret. It is to observe the sequence without forcing meaning onto it. Patterns often form quietly, and they reveal themselves through timing before anything else. The early morning events drew attention from viewers, but not from institutions. The temple-related developments drew attention from religious communities, but not from global media. Both remained largely unnoticed outside their immediate circles. Yet both point to increasing activity around Jerusalem's most sensitive and prophetically loaded location. The convergence does not declare an outcome. It signals motion. Events above the Temple Mount and events within temple preparation systems are advancing side by side. Neither halts the other. Neither contradicts the other. They unfold in parallel, suggesting that the pace surrounding Jerusalem has changed. Something is aligning, not through headlines, not through announcements, through timing, through sequence, through the steady appearance of elements that begin to fit together when placed on the same timeline. The prophetic pattern taking shape. The alignment of recent events does not stand on speculation, it stands on sequence. When ritual requirements reappear after 2,000 years, When gold begins moving toward a defined religious purpose, when trained priests stand ready, and when anomalies occur above the most contested location in the world, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. None of these developments resolve anything on their own, but together they form a structure that resembles the early stages of a prophetic framework. The order is notable. Purification comes before service. Materials come before construction. Training comes before activation. These steps match the historical sequence recorded in the scriptures and recognized by those who study temple restoration. What is unusual is that all of these steps are now active at the same time. For decades, they existed as ideas. For years, they moved slowly in preparation. Now they appear to be converging. Movements of this kind do not usually take place in silence. Yet the most critical components have surfaced with minimal attention. No international announcements, no headlines, only small confirmations scattered across different regions, each contributing to a larger picture. The absence of global awareness does not diminish the significance. It shows that the shift is internal before it becomes visible. If viewed strictly as data points, the events form a clear progression. The reappearance of the ashes, the gathering of gold, the readiness of vessels and priests, the quiet indicators in Jerusalem's early hours. Each element connects to a process described in Scripture, a process that must move in order for later stages to unfold. This does not declare that the final stage is near. It states only that the preliminary structure is being assembled. The foundation is forming. The sequence is active, and the pattern reflects movements that have not been present for 2 millennia. The weight of the moment comes not from any single event, but from the combined direction of all events. Something is advancing in Jerusalem, not loudly, not publicly, but with the kind of order that suggests a timeline is shifting into place. The purpose of reviewing these events is not to reach a definitive conclusion. It is to recognize the movement taking place. Elements that remained absent for centuries are returning. Actions once considered impossible are now active, and signs that appear without explanation are emerging above the same location that has stood at the center of prophecy for generations. Jerusalem is shifting quietly, consistently, in ways that few are noticing. The sound before sunrise, the burst of light, the moment of stillness, the reappearance of the ashes, the movement of gold, and the readiness of those involved in temple service form a sequence that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. The pattern is clear enough to observe, even if its final meaning is not yet visible. Scripture often describes moments in which significant changes begin without public attention. Movements start internally before they unfold outward. What matters now is awareness, not fear, not speculation. Awareness. This is a time to watch closely, to recognize when once dormant components begin to align, to understand that events surrounding Jerusalem rarely appear fully formed. They build in stages. They rise quietly before they rise openly. Nothing in this message predicts a date or declares a conclusion. It simply acknowledges the pace of what is unfolding. Israel is moving. The structure around the temple is moving, and the early signs, both on the ground and above it, indicate that a new phase has begun. For those who follow these developments, the responsibility is straightforward. Stay alert, stay discerning, and stay aware of the sequence forming in front of us. When Jerusalem moves, history follows. And right now, Jerusalem is moving.